I definitely was one of those people who picked up a camera when I was in my teens, but it was a hobby. Then once I was out of school, I realized, I really do want to do photography. I ended up doing a photography program I didn't necessarily need to do. I have an aunt and uncle who do landscape architecture. Decided to up-level my skill set in that area. Also started working for Sonoma Magazine, kind of overlaps with all of these things. It's gonna be a struggle to support yourself this way. Just do what you want. So this is a shoot that I did for a local travel company that rents out these pop-up tents on top of Range Rovers. This was my first cover of a magazine. This was kind of some of my first dabbling with medium format film. Things like this you can't necessarily control for.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Eileen Roche, who is an interior, travel, and lifestyle photographer based in Sonoma County. In case you missed part 1 with Eileen, go back to the previous episode where you can hear all about her creative journey as a photographer. Now we're going to get into the slideshow. So Eileen, go ahead. Let's pull up some of your images.
Yeah, I just thought this was a nice one to start with. This is one of those like right time, right place, be ready type of things where I was getting out of the car at the Grand Canyon and saw this person walking on his own out to this point and kind of like scurried down to the spot that I could get a shot, as the sun is going down, and it's kind of like,
yeah, wow.
Okay, great. Now I can just enjoy the Grand Canyon because that's the shot that I wanted right there.
Wow. So did you like set yourself up to get this shot and there just happened to be someone there, or?
No, we parked. I saw like where everybody could go out to this viewing area, and they're all looking out at the depths of the canyon out here. But then to the left, this guy is kind of just walking down. And so as I came out to that viewpoint, I was watching him and I was like, oh, he's just going to go right to the edge right there by himself. This is going to be beautiful. So I was just watching.
What lens is this?
I think this was probably an 85. Might have been 50.
Was there like smoke or something, or is that just kind of like golden hour haze?
I think it's just golden hour haze. It was maybe an hour before the sun went down. Yeah, because I think I'm facing north, like generally north. The sun was going down to the left of us, to the west.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And was this just a personal trip to the Grand Canyon, or was this for
just personal
photography?
Trip? Yeah. So this is a shoot that I did for a local travel company that rents out these pop-up tents on top of Range Rovers. And I was generally just excited that they contacted me because they have a cool business model and they're making sure to use sustainable products, and they just generally get people outside exploring. And I think we did this in January or February, and so we were, of course, really worried about rain. But what we didn't fully think about was that the lack of rain meant that we had so much wind. It was so windy out at the coast, and we were trying to get these viewpoints and like be out by the beach. And every time we set the tent up, it felt like it was a sail that we'd created on the edge of this road. But it worked, and everybody was really good sports about it. And we were kind of, able to just be strategic, and a couple times we just had to hunker inside the car and like rest from the wind and have some pizza and close our eyes for a second. But I know that this shot was kind of what the client was looking for. So I was excited that we were still, able to get it and make it happen. I think that they contacted me through just they're acquaintances or friends with another client that I'd worked with in the interior design space, actually.
Do you find that you get a lot of your clients through, the same channels? Is it mostly like word of mouth, or are you sort of seeking out specific clients?
Well, I definitely am seeking out specific clients, but that sort of marketing is like a slow burn. For the most part, my clients are are coming from word of mouth.
You wouldn't necessarily maybe use like your landscape architecture portfolio to get, the travel lifestyle clients,
Yeah.
but that's still, if that's how you're getting most of your clients, that's a really interesting like um network that you must have.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I see happen is the landscape architecture and interior design and kind of like builders and architects, that
Hmm.
bucket tends to be they're on the same jobs, they're talking to each other, they're seeing kind of a similar portfolio of images go around. And so they're definitely recommending within. And then I think there's kind of another bucket of like lifestyle. And then definitely my Instagram has a lot of just like my personal travel on there. This was actually, if I remember correctly, it was my first cover of a magazine. First of all, it was pretty difficult to schedule with her because they were in the middle of harvest. And she was being featured for like winemakers to watch profile. And so, they're all hands on deck during harvest and they don't have a lot of people helping them. So it's just like they're up at dawn trying to figure out where the grapes are coming from and where the shipments are coming in and, maybe picking themselves. Got this scheduled and the editor had told me, I would love to be able to have her on the cover if it works out. And I saw these, the barrels and the tanks just kind of giving this perfect leading line if we placed
Hmm.
this bin of grapes right here. And she just kind of leaned on it casually, and I took this and I was like, we're done. That's the shot.
That's it.
Like, and it feels so good when you know that. It can be a challenge sometimes just working with, well, I guess just real people they're not models. They're
Mhm.
not used to being in front of the camera. And so you only have so much time to help people get comfortable with you and then get a shot that feels like it captures their personality, but is,
Mhm.
looks comfortable to them. And so that felt good and was so exciting to have on the magazine.
Yeah. So did you really only take like a couple frames and then you were like, I think we got it?
Well, we took a bunch of stuff before this
Okay.
that was like not quite
It's
there.
feasible, but
Yeah, and they did end up using a couple inside, but I was really looking for something that would feel kind of iconic and then also have the empty space above because they
mhm.
need the space for copy up there.
Yeah, it's a great cover image for sure.
Yeah, what else do we have here? Oh, so I
Ooh,
included this because this was kind of some of my first dabbling with medium format film. And
yeah.
there is something so nice to getting those images back, especially when you're not feeling super confident about your skill set
Mhm.
and then having it
Mhm.
work. So maybe for me, it's just kind of nostalgic. I just felt so good about the colors and the way that, like, the highlights and the shadows work together, just kind of this creamy feeling, a little bit of wind motion blur
Yeah.
in there. And I also just really love the high desert. So there's something about that landscape.
What do you call those? The
The
chimney.
Josh.
It's like
Oh
the
yeah,
chimenea.
what are those called? Um,
Um, it's the chimenea, but I don't know if that's what that is.
you might be right. They're so cute, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, how much styling went into this image?
um,
Like placement of the hat, the chairs, like obviously something, or was it naturally like this?
well, this was like early career for me. This was
Okay.
we. stayed at an Airbnb, so the chairs and the fireplace were there, and then that's
Mhm.
my hat and scarf.
Gotcha.
So I think if I remember correctly, I just kind of saw, I liked what was happening with the colors. Maybe I had even put my hat there just not thinking, and then looked
Right.
back and was like, oh, this is a photo I want to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like this has always been something that I struggle with as, coming more from the documentary side of things of like shooting how things are and representing reality, and then trying to go more in the commercial space and have shots that are more produced, like higher production value, more intentional. And something like this, I feel like for me as a photographer, I would see this and recognize like the specialness, like the juxtaposition, the color and all that, but I don't think that I would get a frame that I was happy with. Because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it would almost be like too much options.
Mm.
Um
Oh, I have that
because it's a
happen.
still,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like where, for you in picking a frame. Now I know it's different because you're actually shooting film, so you're not gonna blow 20 frames on this scene, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how does that work for you, like in the moment of shooting or in post production of like picking the frame that's gonna be the frame?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of things that I'll say to that. And one is that I definitely relate to that feeling. Some of my early dabbles with photography and classes in photography were in photojournalism. And so it was a lot of
Mhm.
like, you know, you don't mess with stuff. Um, you're just telling the story straight. When I started doing weddings, I had a little bit more of an editorial approach, and the woman that I was working with for sure had an editorial approach. So it's like the styling's already there. I'm just maybe moving this soda can out of the frame so that it's a prettier
Mhm.
shot. But you're still
Right.
not in control of the actual aesthetics, you know? You're still kind of telling the story of how the couple and like the people that they hired pulled all this together. That's kind of the part of my career that I was in when I took this was okay, I can play a little bit with this type of thing. And also, I think with starting to shoot film or maybe going back to film, I mean, I learned on film originally, but pretty quickly moved to digital. Um, I had never worked with medium format until about 10 years ago. And it really got me to slow down, you know,
Mhm.
using a light meter, really being deliberate about, okay, each of these frames is pretty pricey. Um, and you don't want to wreck it because you're just like off the cuff, not, metering properly. Um, so yeah, I'll think more about my framing. And even looking at this right now, I'm like, do I like that the Joshua tree is kind of cut off? Like I'm starting to question it a little bit more, like um, but that definitely did help me to shoot less when I shoot digital as well. Because I
Yeah.
can just kind of
Mhm.
slow down and really think about, okay, is this the right exposure? Is this the framing? What's the background
Mhm.
look like? The last thing I was going to mention is now being able to have some experience working with stylists has been a game
Mhm.
changer. I mean, that
Yeah.
that is like so fun because I feel like I
Mhm.
can just show up and think about the light and think about the composition, but they just see it in a different way, and then I don't overthink it. If I try to
Mhm.
style things like a tabletop or I mean, that's always the worst, right? Like you try to do a tabletop and you're like, okay, let's just have these nuts. Like casually, some of them fell out of the bowl. And then you overthink, like, well, should it be
Nothing
three?
about it is
Should it be
gentle.
five? Like, I don't know. No, food stylist or prop stylist, whatever it may be. So
Yeah,
those have been
totally.
really fun for me to just,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Again, hiring a professional for what they're good at, which is
Hmm.
styling,
Yeah.
if you in a position to do that. And then
Yeah.
also sounds like film, while yes, there's more pressure on each frame you create, it does also force you to be more deliberate and say, is this the framing I want,
Yeah.
or is this composition going to be better?
Yeah.
I would be curious to hear, how much, because I know you said you really like to shoot digital and film on hired shoots, and how much like clients are gonna start asking for film and asking for, potentially that other format. Do you experience that much, or is it really just like a, hey, I shoot film as well? You're gonna get some digital selects, and then you'll get a couple film selects.
Well, for interiors and landscape architecture, it hasn't been a thing at all. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just digital. I don't know if you are familiar. Um, I was looking through it
Oh.
recently, and a lot of it is food and interiors, but I'm suspicious that a lot of it is film, which
Mm.
surprised me actually. Here's
Oh wow.
So yeah, I think I could see it if, they were maybe doing a book that's a little bit more of like the feelings overall of the sense of place as opposed to
Hmm.
just documenting like how we remodeled this bathroom. But for me, I guess in terms of the clients, like, okay, dream shoot, like if somebody wanted to hire me for road trip to Texas to go see the eclipse,
Hmm.
I would love to do that as a shoot, as a combo of digital and film, just purely deciding based on my judgment of the scene what's going to make a cooler image. This is a really good example of these locations that I get to just watch the sunrise come up, and, no complaints. But the
Hmm.
reason that I included this was it was kind of a learning experience for me, because one of the things that we do with the landscape architecture is we'll try to shoot at dawn and at dusk. And depending on the property, sometimes it doesn't need both. For this one, it didn't make sense to do it at dusk because the pool overlooking this view was really the highlight, and the sun sets on the other side of the house. So it would just be
Right.
shade. So we went at sunrise, but the thing about that is that we're showing up in the dark, and I haven't seen this property. Um, so my scouting is just, okay, like it's totally dark until, daybreak. This moment that you get colors in the sunrise like that is pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, it definitely worked out, but it can be a little feverish during some of
Hmm.
those moments when you're like, okay, we're gonna have the color in the sky and the reflections on this glassy pool for maybe 10 minutes, and we're gonna try to
Yeah.
get three different scenes at least during that 10 minutes.
Wow.
Um, so I do end up like hustling a little bit, but it's good. It's good if I am able to think about what those scenes are ahead of time.
Yeah, like were you able to scout this location at all in the light before shoot day?
For this one, no. Sometimes that's an option. And
Yeah.
what I've started to try to do is schedule the afternoon shoot first so that I show up at like
Hmm.
4 o'clock and we have plenty of time until it's going to get dark. And then if we need to come back, we come back in the morning. Um, with this one, since we weren't doing the afternoon, it was like way up above Napa, and a
Hmm.
lot of these are private homeowners, and so um, you have to. It's kind of a delicate balance of like how much time can we just be wandering around your property that you're okay with us being here.
Right.
So yeah,
Totally.
it wasn't an option for this one.
Did the architect say, "Hey, the sun sets over here, or rises over here, like this is the
Yeah,
view"? Like how did that kind of work
yeah,
out?
we do talk through that, and they will know that if if the homeowner is my client, or if it's like an editorial with like a magazine or something, I can talk to them about well, when the light is best in your home, even if people aren't able to photograph it the way that you and I would, they know like, oh, it's so pretty in the morning or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, we definitely do talk through that stuff. One of the things that I've learned to ask as well is it on a hill or is it in sort of a gully? Because
Hmm.
that really changes when we're going to lose our light.
You get light. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you can look up, okay, here's the sunset time in Napa, but if you have, kind of if you're in the middle of a valley and there's trees on either side of you, you're
Yeah.
you're just going to be in shadow from, whatever, like 4 p.m. So that's a
Hmm.
different situation for sure. This guy felt like one of those moments of kind of skill set is enough that you know how to capture the shot, but then like things like this you can't necessarily control for. And
Hmm.
I felt like her hugging the dog kind of made it so much more interesting than it would have been if they hadn't been in it, or if it was just her. So yeah, I just kind of liked that it's like, okay, you can get things set up as you can control for certain things, but then you also have to just be ready to like go for it.
Right. So give me a little bit of the context of that image of like, was this a 1 day shoot? Was it editorial? Like, how did it kind of end up like
Yeah, this
this?
one was editorial. What I usually try to do is document the areas of the home that need to be captured, like before bringing the family in, and then kind of
Hmm.
do the more scripted stuff with them towards the end. Again, like I said, I felt like having some more life in this was really nice. So the fact that this little girl was able to just kind of work with me a little bit, be part of the
Hmm.
scene. Getting children to be part of your images in the way that like works well is a challenge. And so I have a couple that I included in here because I'm more proud of them, I think, when
Hmm.
it works and like when a kid trusts me and is able to kind of show their personality more and feel comfortable in the scene.
I've done, work with pets, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like hard enough, and I can't. I have to give props to anybody who works with kids like on a regular basis because I've done a couple shoots with my niece and nephew and like friends' kids, and that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I do enjoy it, but I am exhausted afterwards.
Hmm. Do you have any like go to how to like loosen people up, or what do you kind of tell people when they're first stepping in front of your camera for a shoot like this?
I used to tell people, and I probably should start doing this again, like just kind of naming that it's going to be awkward at first, and just being like, that's fine. I'm going to shoot
Yeah.
it through, and I will kind of tell people, here's how I like to approach it, so they kind of know what to expect. Give them sort of loose instruction, like, I want you to kind of be in this area, but then maybe give them a task like, okay, you're reading this book or you're picking up this glass and then you're putting it down. You're doing that a few times. And then I shoot through that scene so that I can get the moment when
Mhm.
they start walking normally. Because people start overthinking these things. It's like, how do I
Yeah.
hold a glass of water? It can be helpful. It's so funny because I spent, years really avoiding being on a tripod. I just like it, I did
Mhm.
not like to shoot that way. But for some things, and I think that editorial definitely falls in that category. It's nice to just kind of frame up the scene ahead of time and know, okay, this is how we're going to approach this, and what I like. This is a good place for you to sit, or this is a good
Right.
area for you to be walking through and give me some motion blur. It can feel off the cuff or it can feel natural, but really it's quite scripted. Like
It's
you've
staged.
you've really
It's
thought about the framing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the I think I did some shoots for Magnolia Network,
Oh yeah.
and I love doing the kind of unit production photography, um, but it was like home redecorating shows, and they wanted stills of the hosts in action, kind of interacting with guests and doing some of the design work and things like that. And then they also wanted, which to me that was like, okay, chill, that's
Mm-hmm.
doable. And then they also wanted like architectural details, style details in the homes and things. And these were just kind of like extras. I knew that wasn't my main
Mm-hmm.
goal. That wasn't my main deliverable. But I was like, okay, well, I want to try this, and I'd like to do a good job. And I just like shooting handheld, like the difference between like, okay, here versus here, and how all the lines of
Yeah.
everything, like looking at this image, like you have the doorway, you have the molding on the top, you have the line of the rug, you know, so many lines that
Yeah.
it makes sense to me now why you would want the tripod to get the frame and then put the action in the frame.
Yeah, and I didn't think like that before, but what you're
Mm-hmm.
describing is exactly what I've encountered where when I do try to be off the cuff, I mean it's nice because you can get more images more quickly and some things don't require being on tripod or like a lighting setup that's going to be messed up if you move. But I will sometimes look at those images and be like, oh, because I didn't stand in exactly this spot or hold it at exactly this angle, I ended up getting this thing in the background that I wouldn't have if I'd like
Mm-hmm.
thought through this a little bit more. So this is kind of another good example of that. Like everything needs
That's
to line
stunning.
up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this for me, I think was one of the first times that I started. Well, I guess just bringing in lighting in general into interior photography, and then seeing where it was really successful because I was able to. I didn't have to drop anything into this view. Like that's their view of the redwoods, and so it was really important to capture that view and the natural light, but then also not have like the floor and the details of this little chest of drawers on the left be totally in shadow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I did light this a little bit. And yeah, I was kind of proud to like not have a bunch of crazy reflections on the window and not have
Mm-hmm.
crazy shadows and stuff. So it was some of my first
Can
dabbling.
you kind of give me a little breakdown of where you had lights, supplementary lights
I think
for
what
this
I
image?
did, if I remember correctly, is I was bouncing from the corners behind me so that I would get just a little pop of light into the foreground.
Mm.
Um,
So the walls and the ceiling behind you are white,
yeah,
and then you pointed flashes up behind you, so then it reflected down,
yeah,
kind of giving a little. It sounds like a very diffused, like fill kind of light.
very diffuse, soft. Yeah,
But I would imagine this is also like midday or late after, like afternoon, or I mean, it's not like outside. It's not close to dusk or
yeah.
dawn.
I mean, I don't remember what time of year, but I feel like it was maybe 3, 4 hours before sunset because they
Okay.
also lived in the forest. So I realized if we're doing anything outside, we're going to need to do it earlier than you would normally think because
Mm-hmm.
you just lose light in redwoods earlier because those trees are so
Yeah,
tall. Yeah.
totally.
This is just some personal stuff that I did in Havana. Um,
Wow.
and this was fun for me because we had kind of hooked up with sort of a tour guide type of dude. Um, and I told him that I wanted to do something like this. And he sort of worked as a fixer for me. Um, and this is his niece, who's a prima ballerina. And I knew that I
Wow.
wanted to find architecture like this that just felt like nature was taking back over, um, and have her like do some ballet poses and spins. And yeah, so it was a fun, really like purely creative uh, afternoon for me.
But you had the vision. You had the vision for this, like the shot that you wanted, and so you just kind of needed the pieces to fall into
Yeah, I mean,
place.
I had some vision for it. I hadn't been to Havana. It is so nice when you can find people that'll like spend the time with you, as opposed to kind of these one-off portraits when you're traveling. And so I knew that I wanted that, and I wanted to be able to bring people into some of these locations. I mean,
Hmm.
some of these buildings, like they felt abandoned. They're like losing, the roof is blown off from a hurricane like 20 years ago. People are lit like this doorway somebody walked into. That's a home. So these
Wow.
buildings are all over the place, but it's like I wanted, yeah, I wanted to be able to spend time and play. So we did a bunch of stuff. We were in in the streets of Havana, in doorways. There was sort of like an auto body shop, and she's wearing this like lovely white dress, and she had her ballet slippers and stuff. So yeah, it was fun, and I feel like sometimes it is so necessary to just plan stuff like this for yourself. That for me, it was the vision of like the architecture, like the kind of crumbling with nature coming in, all the patina, the lichen, and then she's just like so beautiful. Let's see what else we have in here. Landscape architecture that was fun to kind of pull this together and, make sure that we were there during the time that we were going to get all these blooms. Sweet portraiture traveling. Another Cuba trip, one of those shots that you get back on film. And I was very stoked that this worked because I'm like in the back of this bumpy convertible from 1965 or whatever. But, you can see his hands, that like I'm in focus in the mirror. You can see the seawall. Yeah. I just love the colors. So it might be just a more personal favorite for me. Another local winemaker who I just love her values that she's pulling forward into like how she's working with vendors and where she's getting her wine. And, you meet these people along the way that are just really like, she's so vibrant, and we had such a fun time making these images.
Yeah, and you can tell, like you can feel it in those shots.
Yeah,
sure.
And so I was very pleased with being able to like collaborate in this way. Local flower grower, and again, like people of color in Sonoma County doing this work is like I just love kind of uplifting and telling those stories. And I saw the layers of the trees and the sunflowers, and so I did ask him to stand here, but like him cutting more sunflowers and holding them and like having his clippers right there, it just I loved how it came together.
The stars aligned for that.
And then again with like getting something back on medium format from your travels and just feeling so like validated, I guess. I just love how you can see the details of this crazy calcified, gosh, I can't even explain what this is, but it's this waterfall outside of Oaxaca. It's not a waterfall, I'm sorry. It is a mineral spring that's dripping off the side of a mountain that you can swim. So that's what all that calcified stuff is on the bottom. And again, with just like little kids and their personalities, I volunteered for a while for this mentoring program that takes girls and female identifying kids out in the woods and climbing, and they go kayaking, and they do these just really great like character and confidence building trips. And so I did some photos for them, and it was just like fun when they trust me and they like have their personalities come out and feel good about working with me.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Sure.
Where do you see, like, where do you want to go? Like, do you have any sort of big goals with your photography career?
Oh my gosh, Jolie, that's a huge question. Like I said earlier, before we did the slideshow, we were talking about I just really want to pull in more and more clients that I feel aligns with the values and the stories that we're telling and the products that they're making. So, it would be a dream for me to like get paid to make images of farmers that are, using no-till agriculture, that then helps to pass legislation that pays these farmers for their contribution to carbon sequestration. Something like that would be great. Like to be part of a campaign like that. Yeah, I think so too.
That's awesome. Well, Eileen, thank you so much for taking the time to share your images and share some of your backstory about how you've become the incredible photographer that you are.
Julie, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, this has been great. All right, thank you so much. We will see you next time on the Photo Talk Show. Bye.